Hello, Miss Stephanie. How are you doing today post eclipse?
Hi, Laura. I am doing the best I can. How are you doing?
I feel so much better. I have so much more energy. I feel like I can actually speak this
Yeah,
week because last week I had lost my voice. So, yeah, thank you for asking. I'm feeling way more myself.
very Mercury in retrograde, like you had mentioned, to lose your actual voice.
In the sign of Taurus, which was your throat,
Yep,
another
yep.
astrologer pointed it out to me, and I was like, oh, of course.
Yeah, it was a supercharge of energy, I think, especially because that eclipse had Uranus involved. Um, so today we are going to unpack and share some of our little mini eclipse moments and touch on the coronation, Charles Coronation recap, and May's astrology. So,
Mhm.
everything you need to know about May.
Super excited. Even though we're almost halfway, we feel May is a big month of a lot of changes and ingresses and energy changes and shifts. So we thought, why not? Right?
Yeah, and moving forward for all of our fans and listeners, we are going to do monthly recaps. So you can expect those at the top of the month and come back to them throughout the month to see how is this energy playing out for you? What can you expect? We just, it's what we do in our lives and we find it incredibly useful. So we wanted to share it with you as well.
And I loved what you said about why transits are important for you, which is nervous system regulation. When you know that something is about to end or something is going to only last 6 weeks or 7 months, as was the Mars retrograde.
Yeah.
Mars and Gemini with a retrograde in there. And I don't know if that's your Virgo moon, but I definitely feel that when I know there's an obstacle or a stickier transit and it's only going to last a few months, definitely helps me regulate my nervous system.
Yeah, and I think for anyone who struggles with any type of depression, anxiety, PTSD, like having being able to zoom out and look at these cycles and the windows of difficulty and then windows of relief and being able to process that and have that as a reference, um, yeah, it's just a great tool to help regulate personally my nervous system. And yeah, so we want to share that with everyone else as well.
What I noticed about this 6 month cycle, 6 months ago, about that time, we started this show, and that is when we started creating content. And what's so synchronistic is I was going through the editing process during this Mercury retrograde of all of our past
Mm-hmm.
episodes, our first season, and so many of the same topics that we spoke about in season one were being highlighted again during this season. And I was like, of course, because 6 months later, we are closing out this eclipse cycle in the spring. And one of
Mm.
the things that we spoke about in the fall was the royal family and Pluto and family karma. And we saw that Charles was going to be coronated during the eclipse. And so, what were your initial thoughts when you realized that it was going to be on the eclipse?
Uh-oh. um, a lunar eclipse is intense. And, in ancient times, a lot of astrologers feared eclipses, especially when it came to royalty or public figures. The moon um, would eclipse out some members of the monarchy. So, whether that's a solar eclipse or a lunar eclipse, but a lunar eclipse is the release, it's the purging, and it's coming through in the sign of Scorpio, which is also about purging and release and karma and transformation. So that alone, I was like, wow, obviously it speaks to his chart. The eclipse was activating his 10th house of legacy and public reputation. And, um, it activated personal points in his chart as well, like his moon. And so it makes sense, of course, like a BFD in his life and his for his reputation. But I think we still have to see how it plays out. We're just at the very, very beginning of it. Yeah.
I'm a little suspicious because I am confident that they use astrologers to elect these times because most royal families do. So either they saw something and decided this is going to be good for the monarchy and maybe not for the people, or they intentionally sabotaged Charles III, or maybe he's going to abdicate the throne for William and Kate. So, like you said, we need to see how this story plays out. But I do think it's interesting, though, that it does match his personal natal chart because I did look at the coronation chart, and it is when the moment they put the crown on his head and said "God save the king," it was a Leo rising
Yep.
with a Scorpio moon, and the moon was conjunct his sun, and it was his exact nodal return, like to the degree.
Mm,
So I'm kind of like maybe this specific chart at the time was the best one they could have, with obviously the 10th house stellium all the way at the top of his chart.
yeah. Something else that I think is interesting is um, in ancient astrology, they would have considered the chart void of the moon void because it's not aspecting any of the traditional planets. In modern astrology, it's going to form a trine to Neptune. So there's an aspect there. But if you go by the ancient astrology rules, void moons are often elected um, for nothing to come of the matter. And what's interesting is Ronald Reagan had an astrologer in office, and they would often release controversial policies or, um, uh, yeah, just speeches, timed speeches, and events under void moons because the public's mind is wandering. So there's less attention there. So yeah, it's interesting to see like what will come of this. Did they elect this void moon and people are just going to be kind of indifferent about his, I don't know, reign, I guess. But um, so I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I
I,
think
I
oh, go ahead.
agree actually, but do you want to finish your point?
The other thing I was just going to say is I think we're going to find out a lot more around December 4th and December 17th. And that's because Venus is going to enter Scorpio on December 4th, and Charles is in a Venus year. Um, and it's going to activate his moon. It's going to oppose his moon, which is in his 10th. Then on the 17th, Venus in Scorpio crosses the eclipse point.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a big deal in astrology. Eclipses don't just manifest that week or that day or even a month after. When personal planets move over those eclipse points, the eclipse energy is activated and part of our storyline comes up once again. So I think we should really look back. Obviously, we'll come back to this episode and see what is playing out around those two dates, but I think we'll see some interesting news.
Mm-hmm. I agree with your avoid a course moon analysis because 60% of people don't like Charles III. And I don't know if you've heard a lot of the booing that was happening,
Mm.
and people still remember Diana, who passed 25 years ago, and they still have this grudge against Charles. But also, he is 74, I think. He's going to be
Mm-hmm.
75 this year. And something about this chart just feels like, again, he's being overshadowed by somebody else, by like first it was his mother, then it was his ex-wife, and I heard rumors that he didn't want Kate to even like wear a beautiful dress because she was going to steal his thunder, so they made her like cover up and not wear a tiara. And he is a Leo rising, and
Yeah.
he wants to be seen.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that also may have had something to do with the void of course moon because the
Ooh.
moon, for those of you who don't know, speaks about the people.
Mm-hmm. That's fascinating. Um, one other thing that, because I looked at his chart and the coronation chart before we hopped on, and I think we're going to have to pay attention to once Pluto re-enters Aquarius, because it's going to square his moon.
Yes.
The moon is also the body, the physical body. Now for him, that's in his 10th house. So there could be something to look at there, either health related, or the moon can sometimes be a universal signifier of an important partner or person in our life. So maybe something with Camila's health. But that was something that stood out to me, because I was like, what are the big transits that he's going through right now? He's also going through his Saturn opposition, and he will also have Jupiter oppose Jupiter conjoin his moon. So those are some major transits when I think of physical health and body, whether it's him or Camila. So just wanted to name that.
On a more positive note, I was listening to no, because I don't love the guy.
Yeah.
I've spoken in one episode that I have compassion for him after watching The Crown, but yeah, I have personal feelings about it. But I watched this British astrologer and she had a different take. And she was explaining how Charles is a Taurus moon and the moon is exalted in the sign of Taurus. And he is like a plant person. And he used to be made fun of as when he was a kid and when he was a young adult for speaking to plants. And it just goes to show that there's a whole side of Charles that's very artsy and sensitive, and he wants to garden, and he has some reform movements. Okay, gotta give him credit where credit is due. He has like the Royal Prince's fund or something where he gives money to children and young adults. Okay, he does,
Mhm.
even though he's a billionaire and he, whatever.
Yeah.
And I do think that there is a side of him that maybe wants to have some kind of redemption with the people.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I
Mm.
don't know him personally, obviously, but um, maybe he wants to do better, and maybe he, at this age, he's ready to maybe cater to the people or be the people's king. I hope so.
I love your Sag rising. We need this optimistic spin. We do. My Pluto is like, no, he's going to destroy everything. Um, no, but I think you're right. Both can coexist. And that's such a good point. And it also shows, it just makes me think about how we're so conditioned to lose our magic. Like when you said he used to speak to plants, I was like, that melts my heart a little bit. But yeah, we had some predictions a couple months ago, and now we have some more. So we'll have to see how that unfolds.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we said that was a little tricky with this chart, but we shall see.
Mm-hmm.
So, do you have any Scorpio eclipse stories?
Yes, yes. Okay, so a couple days before the eclipse, I volunteer for hospice and I'm on the vigil team. So when someone is, close to passing away, they call some of the vigil team members in. And I went to visit this woman and she was non-responsive. And I just, sat with her and did some energy work with her. And um, I heard two names very loudly the second I sat down. And right before I left, I just, said, Richard and Thomas are here and they are so excited to see you and they love you. And they want you to know you're safe and you're protected. And the whole time I was there, she wasn't tracking. She was in kind of like a coma, non responsive state. But after I said that, she shed a tear.
Mm,
And then she passed away the next day.
wow,
So
she felt ready to leave.
yeah, yeah, so that felt very scorpionic, and I was just so grateful to be a part of that, to to share that moment with her.
Hmm.
What
That
about you?
that is so magical. I love when that stuff happens. I really do.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, on brand with Scorpio, it was a theme of death. I was having all sorts of dreams about dying and exes from my past coming back because it's still Mercury retrograde. And I had a little full moon eclipse, lunar eclipse party at my friend's house. And so she invited her friends, I invited my friends. And just the topic that we were all talking about really was about death. And so many people that came, actually, wildly enough, 5 out of the 15 were Leo risings,
Ooh.
and 2 of them were going through a divorce. So I think it was that Saturn in the Aquarius house, and and
Pluto in the seventh too.
yes, exactly.
Mm.
And yeah, just the topic of death was so prevalent. Not Also not literally sometimes, but just the death of parts of yourself. And I wore all black, and people were like, "Wow, you look so Scorpio." And I said, "I'm at my own funeral because I'm ready to let go of the old me, like the old Laura's dead." And there were so many parts of myself that I was just ready to integrate and let go. And so, yeah, on brand with Scorpio, it was a release, death, regeneration moment there.
I love that. You always give me chills every episode.
Because
My
I'm
goodness.
so dramatic.
I love it. You know, my Leo loves that. Yeah. So please share with us, what were some of your Scorpio moments? We want to hear how this eclipse played out for everyone. And this is our last lunar eclipse in Scorpio until 2031. So we are technically still in eclipse season, I think, until the last quarter moon passes that eclipse point, which will take place either tomorrow or Friday. So you can still purge. You can still purge, I think, until the new moon in Taurus.
But also
So
we have our last eclipse in Taurus in the fall. But it's
yes,
a north node eclipse. So
yes,
I think it's a little different energy.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I felt the eclipses in Scorpio, since it was a south node eclipse, were super intense.
They were extra. Yes,
I was like, damn.
yeah. The South Node definitely. I mean, the moon doesn't enjoy being in Scorpio if you are. So they're amplified for sure. But
You made a
May is about to get a little better.
Yes. You made a good point, which I forgot to mention, is that the moon is not happy in Scorpio, but the ruler of the moon was also not happy in Cancer. So
Yeah.
it was just a lot of emotions and not knowing what to do with them. It was like boiling rage. The
Yes.
rage was raging.
Yes. Um, I worked with water a lot. I took a lot of baths. Um, yeah. And you can still do that. So if you're feeling any of that, bottled up resentment or rage and you want to purge, just a visualization in the bath or the shower is a great way to kind of just move through and cleanse your energy real quick.
Mhm.
But
May.
May is going to get a lot better. So we've kind of moved through the most I don't know if we moved through the most intense part of it, but there's a lot of action and excitement the second half of the month.
Mhm. Your Taurus house is going to be Taurusing.
Yes. Yes. So find where Taurus is located in your birth chart. What are the topics and themes associated with it? Because that is where all of the action is taking place.
Mhm. Question for you. I know the answer, but for the listeners and the viewers, do you see your natal chart as 12 different areas of your life, or do you see the natal chart as you and different parts of you?
Hmm. Um, I think I think I think a little bit of both, but mostly different parts of my life. But I think my Virgo moon is just like trained to look at it that way. But if I think about it and I think about, oh, how do I communicate? How do I self-express? So my self-expression and communication is ruled by um, Venus and Virgo, and I've struggled with self-expressing for so long. So yeah, I think it both makes sense. What about you?
I'm just asking because I do feel like my Aquarius placements is they're so fixated on one way, and I'm trying to be more open-minded because I used to
Oh,
believe I'm so open-minded, but once I find something that works for me and that I can like find research backed and know where the roots are, it's really hard for me to have an open mind about it. But I watch a lot of astrologers on TikTok and YouTube, and one astrologer that came onto my For You page said that he sees the natal chart as different parts of oneself. And my personal opinion is that's very egocentric. Like, yes, it's you, but it's also different parts of your life and how other people fit into it. So I was just wondering your thoughts about it.
I,
I was taught that it's different parts of your life.
yeah, I feel like the different parts of you is more modern astrology, and the parts of your life, like that's ancient traditional astrology, Hellenistic astrology, and way beyond. That's been the way that um, people all over the world have recognized and used the birth chart for centuries. So,
I'm starting to figure out that it's way, way harder to find people who have learned the same way. I feel
oh, the
like we're,
traditional astrology.
yeah, I feel like we're in the minority.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of modern astrologers out there for sure, but I don't know. I'm set in my ways. I'm a Leo stellium. So I mostly do whole sign. I think it's just easier and makes more sense for me. Unless I'm doing electional astrology or horary, then I'll use a quadrant based system.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Will you ever use Placidus if someone asks you to?
No.
No.
Probably not. I'd be like, go to someone else. I don't know. Yeah, it's not for me. I learned on Placidus. I learned with Placidus, and that's how I studied for years. But I don't know. Everybody's different. It all comes out the same. You just get to it different ways,
Yes.
I think.
But I do feel like it's important when the ingresses happen. So I
Yes.
bring this up because if you use Placidus and you have a Taurus which goes between two houses, then you would focus on two different aspects of your life.
Yep. Totally. Yeah.
So what should we start with first?
I think Mercury direct is the first biggie.
Mm-hmm.
So that takes place on May 14th.
Mm-hmm.
Mercury retrograde ends finally. Everyone can calm down and stop blaming the sky. Um, yeah, and then as Mercury begins to pick up speed, uh, I think we'll be in the post shadow retrograde period until June 4th.
Mm-hmm.
Does that sound about right?
Mm-hmm.
So I always see the post shadow as kind of like the final chapter and an opportunity to either clear up miscommunications, execute and move forward on plans and ideas that you have like a stronger foundation and feeling towards. But just kind of like sweeping up the remnants of your personal Mercury in retrograde experience. So
Yes.
there's still a little bit of, miscommunication and a little bit of haywire energy, but it's not as bad, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm. What we noticed last year when we were doing the year ahead forecast, which is available on YouTube, is Mercury went retrograde between the degrees of 5 and 15. And Jupiter will also be tracking the same retrograde path between 5 and 15.
Yeah.
So you want to see if you have any placements between 5 and 15 in Taurus or any of the fixed signs or any sign really because it's going to be
Mm-hmm.
activated because there's something about those 10 degrees that need to be reassessed or
Mm-hmm.
looked at. I do find
And
it interesting.
And some of the eclipse points that we've experienced, going back to 2021 on the Taurus Scorpio axis are along that path. So
It's true.
definitely pay attention, especially to the station degree points, which is 15 and 5, like Laura said. So if you have planets around those two, degree points in the sky, you're going to feel it more intensely, especially if you're a fixed sign. So Leo, Aquarius, Scorpio, and Taurus.
Mm-hmm. Fun.
Fun. But I mean, I think this is great. Like, we get more wind in our sails. There's we can move forward again. We're more confident. We're we've reassessed, we've paused.
Yes. And we mentioned this because Jupiter will be entering Taurus on May 16th for 1 year. I'm actually excited about this because I realized I did some reflection, and Jupiter in Aries was all just like visions and planning and launching, but to actually have that manifestation in a physical form, Jupiter needs to be in some kind of earth sign. And
Well, yeah.
and the fact that it's ruled by Venus, I think it's going to be very benefic for a lot of people. Fingers crossed.
Yeah. I was just going to say that Taurus is we have planted our seeds during, the Aries transit, and now they're beginning to sprout once Jupiter enters Taurus. And when Jupiter has been in Aries, it's been ruled by Mars, which is a malefic planet. And maybe we've had a lot of energy and courage to move forward on some of our goals and dreams. But now there's more harmony, support, and to pursue what is becoming of those intentions.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's a really exciting time. I'm also, fingers crossed, hoping it's good for the environment.
Yes.
I also noticed that last time Jupiter was in Taurus, we had Occupy Wall Street. So I'm hoping that conversations about wealth inequality and that gap are elevated on a large scale once again.
Yeah, actually, now that you bring that up, over the eclipse, like couple days, I think before or after, we had a houseless black man who was murdered unalived by a veteran of some kind. And they were saying that, oh, he has mental health problems and issues, and it's Mental Health Awareness Month. And I was like, if you are hungry and you have no home, wouldn't you go insane? It's a
Mm.
basic need, and Taurus is all about food, right? And like sustenance and
Nourishment.
nourishment. And anybody in his shoes, you have nowhere to go, you have no safety, you literally have to beg people for food. And then like wouldn't you, like, I know I get hangry sometimes, like wouldn't you also go like crazy? It's not really maybe mental health. And I just thought, wow, the guy who actually unalived him is was just set free.
Yeah. Yeah. It's awful. That was an awful, awful.
Awful. I was like, can we have not more like compassion at a human level?
Yeah.
Sorry
It's
to
survival mode,
Yeah, sorry to
you
bring
know?
Debbie Downer down, Debbie Downer. Sorry to be a Debbie Downer, but I think the North Node being in Taurus was so profound.
No. And I think these are the stories that are important to elevate and talk about. And when you think of wealth inequality, like this is how it's playing out right now. And let's leave the world a little bit better than we found it.
Hmm.
I'm hoping that's what Jupiter and Taurus can help us do.
I hope so.
Yeah.
Are you
Um,
feeling excited about it?
I'm really excited. I am. I looked back to 12 years ago for my Jupiter and Taurus cycle, and it was a really big and exciting time for me. I think it was around the first time I ever got an article published, and was really taking off in my writing career. And yeah, it's amazing to look back, but also big dramatic things were going on in my life. And it was in my 10th house. So I see the 10th house not just as like career and reputation, but like major life milestones, either like getting married, breaking up, like all that kind of stuff. So
That
yeah,
was in 2011 to
yeah.
2012.
Hmm.
I have to do more thinking about this.
Yeah, yeah.
By the way, I never used to like understand Taurus energy. I would always be like, gosh, it's so boring and like we need fire and I'm a fire sign girly, but I'm really digging it. I'm really digging Taurus energy and really like here in the Northeast, everything is like peak flower, everything's like super green and it's not as like hot yet, so it's like just beautiful. And I'm like,
Mhm.
and I'm also in my Venus perfection year, so I'm just like, oh, I love it so much.
I mean, I married a Taurus. My
I
husband,
know. I
yeah,
get it. I totally get it. I'm like now I need an earth sign man in my life to like help ground me.
there, his ability to be present. He literally said to me the other day, he's like, "It's good to be a Taurus." I was like, "Oh my god, I wish I would have captured that on film." But like a couple years ago, we took an anxiety test online. This was obvi during the panini when I was like everyone was
Yeah.
and it was out of 60 and I scored 55
Mhm.
and he scored 5.
Wow.
So mellow, the mellowest creature I've ever met.
Yeah. I on the eclipse, we were all like talking about because I'm single, everyone knows this. They're trying to set me up with people and they're like, "What's your type? Like what are you looking for?" And I'm like, "I think I might have to amend my vision board. An earth I want earth placements because this is
Uh-huh.
fabulous.
Yeah.
Every time I'm around a Taurus specifically, they just want to hug, they want to eat delicious food, they want to like just luxuriate. And I'm like, okay, maybe I'm in that luxuriate era of my life.
Yes.
Like,
Yes.
I don't want to work hard or burn myself out anymore. And oh, yeah.
But yes, like you said, like Taurus is about pleasure and our physical senses. And so I'm really looking forward to this Jupiter transit because Jupiter is this planet of abundance and growth and luck and spirituality and wisdom. And to have it coming through in this sign, I think is just going to be really grounding and nourishing. So I
Yes.
think what's also interesting is the day after Jupiter enters Taurus. So we have kind of like a triple whammy. We have Mercury stations direct on May 14th, Jupiter enters Taurus May 16th, and then May 17th, Jupiter in Taurus forms a square with Pluto in Aquarius right away.
Hmm.
What do you think about that transit?
Hmm. What do you think that will manifest into?
I think personally it can really kick up. These are slower moving planets. So what that means is that this combination doesn't happen very often. Um, and it's never happened in our lifetimes because we've never had Pluto in Aquarius. So that's also something to pay attention to. So again, if you are a Taurus, Leo, Scorpio, or Aquarius, and you have early placements in those signs, you're going to feel this intense the strongest. But Jupiter and Pluto colliding, when those two planets meet, they are often wealth indicators. Um, but Jupiter expands everything it touches. So I think it's going to obviously depend person to person, but it can really kick up this drive and ambition and competitive nature to pursue your goals and to have the optimism and courage to go after something full force. Like Pluto can be very fixated, tunnel vision. So I think on the positive side, there is that kind of energy available to us, but Jupiter may also be amplifying some of the darker seeds of Pluto. And I think on the world scale, I'm concerned on the global scale. I think we will see some frightening and probably um, triggering and sad news stories around that time. Would be my guess.
Yes. It's going to be very interesting couple of years. I would say year when Pluto goes back into Capricorn. again at the anaretic degree, and then when it moves back into zero Pluto, it seems like something's not quite finished, right? Like we're
Oh
going
yeah.
back because you haven't finished the story. And so people with cardinal sign placements that are like 29 degrees, something you thought was done might not be done yet. And then people with 0 degrees around their fixed placements were like, at least for me, I was like, we're done with Capricorn. But maybe it was like a false start and
Yeah.
you weren't quite finished. That's kind
Yeah.
of what it feels like. It's like,
Hmm. No, absolutely. Yeah, we're picking up a storyline from February again, um, around June 11th. So pay attention to, or look back in your phone through your photos, through your emails, what was going on in February for you when Pluto was hovering at 29 degrees of Cap, because it's going to hit that point again and move through that point for a while around June 11th. So, but before it does that, we get this massive final hurrah. It's like Pluto and Aquarius is like, bam, yeah, this has never happened in your lifetime. And I'm going to square Jupiter. And then I'm going to oppose Mars. And then we're going to just like, I'm going to cause all the drama. You'll see. So I think this is, in my daily horoscopes, I've been saying like, pay attention every time the moon moves through Aquarius, because this is part of your Pluto and Aquarius storyline. But we're really getting the, this is like sitting in a theater, watching it all play out on stage for us right now, because it will go on to oppose Mars and Leo later. But first, on May 19th, we have the new moon in Taurus, which is a cute little thing, don't you think?
cute, very cute. But it's conjunct Algol, which is
Oh.
one of the malefic fixed stars. Um, but I do, but I do love a new moon in Taurus because the moon is exalted in Taurus, and it feels like, wow, we can really plant our seeds, or our seeds are growing now. And I do find it interesting that once Mercury stations direct, that whole week there's a huge stellium of planets in Taurus. I think it's the sun,
Mm.
the moon, Jupiter, Uranus, the North Node, right? There's just like, obviously, the universe wants us to embody Taurus energy, maybe to really feel grounded and to be present. So I'm gonna need to like really study somebody like Joey, and because yeah, it does seem like something's being unearthed or shaken up, and I think the new moon is, which I also think interesting, that we started the month with an eclipse, a full moon. So it was like we needed to release something before we could set a new intention for the new moon.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think besides the algal conjunction, which to your point is something we should pay attention to, um, it's forming, the moon is forming some sweet aspects. So it's forming a gentle connection with Neptune in Pisces. This is a planet of compassion and grace and creativity and romance. Um, and then it's also going to be forming a nice connection with Mars and Cancer, but Mars and Cancer will be at the anaretic degree, which is 29 degrees. So we might feel, I think under most lunations, at least my experiences, I feel both things, usually that duality. Like usually there's growth and optimism, but then that tension, there can be tension too. That's just part of being human.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I do think that this is a fertile moon for
Yes.
planting new intentions and desires. It's a good one to work with if you want to do planetary magic or cast a spell or perform a ritual. It's a cute one. It'll be ruled by Venus in Cancer. Love that.
Love that.
So yeah,
Lovely.
it's a little reprieve, I think, right before the next day Mars enters Leo, which I can tell you all about because I have that in my birth chart. And
Mars return.
yeah, yeah. And then the second after it enters Leo, it's going to basically be opposing Pluto and Aquarius. So that that can be violent and intense and reactive energy. So again, I think on the global scale, pay attention to the news that's unfolding around that time. I think this feels like a big turning point, because Jupiter will already be in Taurus and we have a T-square in the sky, which means 3 planets are kind of sitting around the same degrees, activating big, activating the sky.
Mars in Cancer was super brutal. All of the things that were happening with children, the school shootings,
Yeah.
people being shot for like no reason,
Yeah.
walking in someone's house by accident or someone's driveway. It was there was a lot of gun violence during this time. Not that there isn't every day, but
Yeah.
for some reason it just spoke really loudly.
Yes. Yes. And like what's happening in Florida with trans kids and being taken
Yes.
away from their parents. It's, yeah, I think you made an important call out about the children and the harm and the violence that's taking place. So this is a kind of a nice shift, because Mars will get more dignity. Which means it's kind of operating a little bit better. It knows how to move through Leo. It'll be answering to the sun. So whatever the sun is doing is going to kind of influence how we take action or how we react to something. And the sun will mostly be in Gemini, and the sun and Mars will be able to see each other. So I think it will be once it passes those intense connections with Jupiter and Taurus and Pluto and Aquarius, it should be a fun, lively, flirty, transit.
Mm-hmm. How does Mars and Leo show up for you?
Oh my God, just being obsessed with myself. I stalk myself on the internet. I take like 700 selfies a day. If anything is reflective, I'm like, oh, hi. Like,
You're
disgusting.
so honest.
Disgusting. It's true. It's in the first house. I can't hide it. You know what I mean? So, but I think a lot of people are obsessed with themselves, but they just don't say it.
Mm-hmm. They're very self-focused for sure.
Yeah. I take action from my heart. So if I feel something, that's my motivation, is like, if something makes me feel a certain way, that's very Mars and Leo for me.
I made an observation about Leos this past weekend, because somebody had the almost exact chart as you, which was creepy.
Oh my gosh.
She is a Leo sun with a Leo rising, but she had a Pisces moon, so kind of similar to Anita. But I find Leo risings to be ambiverts. Because like most people think Leos are just like a J Lo, right? Like super out there, super look at me, and I do see an aspect of that. But more oftentimes than not, I meet Leos who are kind of shy, who don't necessarily want to be the center of attention, but for some reason they're always called to be. Like the situation calls them to be, even though sometimes they're like, no, I'm okay. And I find them to be a little bit more shy, or like there's two sides of a Leo like that.
I think that is very resonant. I personally believe Leo risings incarnate with that quandary. It's like the desire to be seen, but also this intense fear and of being seen, of what others think, of approval, of taking up space. And so I think part of our journey as Leo risings is to move through that and to share ourselves authentically, and to dare to be seen and to take up space. But I'm incredibly shy. Like if you put me in a group of new people and I just knew you, I would not say anything. And I have all these Leo planets in the first house. You'd expect me to walk in and be like, I'm Stephanie.
Hello.
And guess what? Like if I know, if I'm in a group of people where I know everyone, I'm loud, I'm obnoxious, I'm all of the Leo things. But I am incredibly shy. Yeah.
Yeah. And Leo placements, specifically Leo suns, love lighting. They're obsessed with lighting. They need a good lighting.
Oh my gosh, right before we started filming, I was like, I look too much like a tomato. Let me change the lighting in here. Yeah, it's so true. We do. We do. I love a little sunshine. I soak up the sun anytime I can. But yeah, so we have some of this. This is the type of energy that we are, it's like like a gust of wind coming in with Mars and Leo. So it's energetic, it's lively, it's optimistic. We're taking action from our heart. We're feeling more bold and courageous. Leo's a very creative sign. So you may be hit with like a wave of creative inspiration. It's also very dramatic.
Mm-hmm.
So lots of drama can kick up, I think, under this transit if you don't have that kind of like in the back of your head.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of fixed energy. I think that's, the universe is calling for that. But I'm optimistic, so I always have a optimistic spin on things. But I feel like the rest of May is going to be like really nice.
Mm.
I'm
Hmm.
really looking forward to it.
Yeah. Well, so May 21st, the sun is going to enter Gemini.
Hmm.
That is a lively and fun place for the sun to be, communication, social, dialogue, learning, traveling, just trying new things, having that uh, curious, childlike wonder kind of comes back into our lives.
Hmm. I do love Gemini season.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So yeah, it'll be a social and fun time. I think a couple days later on May 22nd, Mars and Leo is going to square Jupiter and Taurus. And that feels like a big burst of energy, like taking a big action, or working really, really hard on something, or that could also amplify some anger and frustration if it's been building. So leading up to that day, I would recommend um, either screaming in your car or into your pillow at the top of your lungs, or some kind of release of anger, just preemptively, because that can be a really reactive transit, but also kind of give you the, whew, the energetic burst you need to get something done that you've really been wanting to do.
Mm, I really like that advice. I interviewed my friend Cassandra Lamb for my podcast, and she's a somatic healer, and her company is called Collective Rest, and it's very much based on Trisha Hersey's The Nap Ministry. I don't know if you follow that
Mm-hmm.
ministry, and I really feel like the Nap Ministry is Taurus energy. It's like
Mm-hmm.
going slow, taking naps, taking rest. And rest is different than sleep. Sleeping is like at nighttime. Rest is just letting your mind be at peace and just not working, basically. And she was saying that it's so important for us to take a moment, take a pause, and reflect so that we don't react, so that
Yeah.
we don't continue these cycles of violence and on ourselves and on others. And that's really the only way we can create change, because ever since the dawn of time we've just been reacting from a place of woundedness and trauma. And I think that is such a Taurus season like call to action.
Yeah.
And as somebody with many, many squares in my chart,
Mm-hmm.
I feel like squares are call to actions. And so if you're ever at this place where you feel like you're raging out or you want to just like unalive somebody,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
you need to find healthy channels, because it's just energy that needs to move through you. It
Yes.
needs to be expressed and released.
Yeah. Even just what came to my mind was like, okay, a lot of people are like, I don't want to scream at the top of my lungs. Like, get a pen and dig it into a piece of paper.
Yeah.
Like that can feel, or one of those like creepy drawings that little children make. It's like,
Yes.
black circles and darkness. And that's kind of that's a good way to just purge
Yeah.
some energy.
A couple of weeks ago, you made a video up with Game of Thrones, and we were talking about. I feel like that's very Leo. It's like you channel your stuff into your maybe your rage into creativity, but I just thought we were talking about how dragons, for me, just even watching Daenerys burn stuff down is so cathartic for me.
Yes.
I just love watching all of her scenes.
Yes, I finished rewatching, obviously, or like, why would I make this niche video? But I just finished rewatching, and for the couple of, weeks that I was watching the show, I would like run around the house and be like, Dracarys, because it's so satisfying. I tried to teach Marla, my dog, didn't catch on,
Mm-hmm.
but
So satisfying. Oh my God.
um, yeah, so May, there's a lot of movement, which I think is going to be exciting. There's and big planetary shifts. So the Leo house in your chart, the Taurus house in your chart, and the Aquarius house in your chart are all going to feel activated under the second half of the month. And the last major transit that I have noted for the month is May 28th, and that's when the Sun in Gemini is going to square Saturn in Pisces. So Saturn is a little bit of a Debbie Downer in astrology, and the Sun in Gemini wants to have fun, and Saturn in Pisces kind of might want us to wallow, or might remind us of our responsibilities, or there can be limitations or rejection, or just feelings of loneliness, but it's a quick transit and it's not going to last forever. So yeah.
We always need these cosmic check-ins.
Yeah. And it's
So
also,
much fun.
but it is also, I guess, the first quarter of the Saturn Sun cycle. So whatever took place when the Sun and Saturn met in Aquarius earlier this year, this is like the next action point. So it's not necessarily all bad. It's an action point when it comes to your personal authority, and yeah, what you have been working towards. This can come with some, maybe you get more responsibility and you feel like a little burdened by it in some way, but at the same time it's exciting. So I don't think it's necessarily all bad.
Yeah, I like that. I also think that when you have like we just had an Aries stellium, in April, and we had all these ideas and we had all these dreams and visions, and we had two new moons in Aries. But then Taurus season comes and it's like, okay, now you actually have to like do the work, and you have to start building, and you have to start putting in the effort. And sometimes these squares give you like a reality check, like, are you really doing it? Are you putting in the time that you said you were going to do? And I think they're just cosmic alignments to check yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a lot of action in the second half of the month, and a lot of opportunities to focus on co-creation and manifestation work, opportunities to just make big moves and strides towards whatever you wish to bring about.
And speaking of, Steph, don't you have something coming out in the fall?
I do. Seasons of the Zodiac, Love, Magic, and Manifestation Throughout the Astrological Year is my first book, and you can pre-order it right now.
Ta-da!
Yeah.
Steph had this great post, I think yesterday you posted it, about like why it's important to take action on these astrological alignments and electional astrology. If you didn't know, Stephanie and I use planetary magic for our everything,
Yeah.
basically. When we write emails, when we reach out to people, when we post on social media, we take this so freaking seriously.
Mm-hmm.
So I think our intention is to help you and give you like a heads up. And Stephanie wrote a whole book about it.
Yes. Thank you for mentioning. Yeah. It's so the book helps you manifest alongside the zodiac seasons, and because there's going to be different energies and exercises that are going to help you tap into that energy and speed along your timelines and your goals quicker as you move through the different seasons. But electional astrology is such a game changer, and it's made such a world of difference in both of our lives. So if that's something that we can share with you, I would say pay attention to this new moon in Taurus. That's a real big highlight for this month if you want to make some cosmic alignments.
Yes. And not to this isn't fear mongering at all, but most of these alignments are once in a lifetime, some of them,
Mm-hmm.
and so you want to take advantage of this. You
Yeah,
want, the energy is going to be there, and there is a cycle of death and regeneration, and now we're in the cycle of birth and new creation, so might as well take advantage.
absolutely. So let us know how your May went, and drop your rising sign. Maybe we'll tell you something cute that's happening in your birth chart. And we will see you all soon.
Bye.
Bye.